Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at in the world right now. Welcome to Talking is Hard, episode 5. I am one of your hosts, Sydney, and I am joined with my other co host.
Maximilian.
And for this episode, we are going to be talking about just the topic of hustle culture, capitalism, and just like our perspectives on it, how we have sort of experienced it, and just, given our general thoughts on it. So I want to start off by saying, for those of you who have been following us so far on this journey, we want to give a shout out to y'all for watching and for sharing and liking and commenting on the podcast episodes. It does mean a lot. We really do appreciate y'all's support. And yeah, let's get into the conversation. So, I guess where do you want to start?
I guess as far as hustle culture capitalism. Hmm, I think it's important to kind of highlight the idea of people don't dream of labor, and the people have, of course, you have dream jobs, but I don't know if you necessarily dream I feel I don't know. I guess I'll let you expand more on that thought, but I think that's just a natural thing that people don't just wake up and think of man, I can't wait to work hard, really
Yeah.
hard. So, but yeah, I kind of want to get your thoughts on that. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, because I've seen, at least on YouTube, all these different creators, both big and small, sort of creating videos on the whole topic of is there such a thing as a dream job? Do we actually need a dream job? Do we actually need um a passion or whatever? Because if you think about it, at least when we're kids, the whole thing that's just okay, what do you want to be when you grow up? And that whole concept of thinking about, you know, at least for me, I wanted to be all kinds of things as a kid. And I feel like my answer sort of changed every single year that I got older. And so getting into high school or such, I felt like I had an idea because I thought that by that point, okay, I really need to start thinking about my future. I really need to start thinking about, okay, what am I going to do with my life once I leave high school and college, whatever. But thinking on it now, I feel like I don't know if I necessarily have a dream job or a dream career because I also don't necessarily dream of working, but I don't know. It's interesting to think about, because I feel like there's just this pressure. At the end of the day, I just feel like it's just that societal pressure to know what you want and to have everything figured out and to have your whole life planned out when you know stuff can happen just like that. And as you grow, you change, and you're not gonna have the same interests throughout your whole life and be passionate about the same things throughout your whole life. So I just I don't know. I think that I think for one, if you don't necessarily have a dream job or a passion or because people say oh, you need to find your passion, you need to figure out what do you want to do, you need to find a job that is both gonna pay the bills but also gonna give you it's gonna be something that you are going to enjoy doing. But it's just what if you don't even know what it is that you like, what if you don't even know if the things that you like are actually the things that you're passionate about? Because I feel like there's a kind of a difference in a sense.
yeah.
I can say that I like um I can say that I like to cook, right? But am I really passionate about cooking? Could I see myself wanting to be a chef and work in a restaurant? So I feel like it's stuff like that. So I don't know, but I yeah, that's kind of where my head is at with that. So I wonder what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I like that for sure. And what I'll say, I think on the subject is, I think because of the opportunities like presented in media and the opportunities presented in the world now, I don't necessarily think just because someone doesn't have like a dream job, but that they don't think of like maybe labor, that they don't doesn't mean that they don't think of like their career, meaning
Yeah.
like they like because it is realistic or a lot more realistic than it was um, to have like a podcast, for instance, or to have like I don't know, to want to like interview people or like create your own like blog or things like that. Like you like those can still be like dream like things. They can still be like dream like careers. But I think it's less like nowadays like um, thinking of it as like a job. And um, there's some elements of that that I think actually are kind of healthy in that, right? Like I think um, you I think the sometimes whenever you think of something as just like work, right, and you don't have like any type of passion or any type of tie to it, I think the burnout can be really quick. Like the burnout can be
Yeah.
like, oh my god, like okay, I'm you know I'm over it. But I think if you feel like you're continuing to do something that you just like I don't know care about, and that like you just like this is your thing to do, but yet you can still make a career out of it. I think that that's kind of like a solid point. But I'm with you. I think that um, I don't know. I think that as time goes on, obviously, as a society, we grow more conscious about certain things, and I think I don't know. I just think that in an instance like that, an instance of it's not just work, work, work anymore. I think that a lot of it is kind of like truly finding things that you really like, and then finding the fact that there's people that have the same kind of interest, and then seeing how you can flip that into like an actual career or things like that. And then obviously, I know we keep talking about it, hitting on it, but it is kind of important. Like we did grow up in like a time frame where like media started to change like drastically. Like it became like this machine that instead of just like you'd go on there and see like a couple like cat videos, like now it's like a true like industry, I guess. um, and I don't know, I just think that it's less like I have to like kill myself for this job, or but more like, all right, I want to find out what I can do and what I think is dope, and then kind of just go on from there. So yeah, just to piggyback off of those thoughts, because I agree with you wholeheartedly, and as far as that goes. So um, and that actually kind of brings me to another point too. The fact that I feel like uh, at least after the year we had recently, and everything, I think that you're seeing like an increase in people quitting their jobs, and a lot of times quitting those jobs to um, I don't know, go and find either that what that thing that they really want to do is, or just like whenever a situation does become like either like where you do feel like that burnout, or you do feel like maybe you're undervalued, or that anything like that is the case. I think you just see people quitting. Like more, like I don't know, more like it's like an easier decision for some reason than it was previously to just be like, you know what, like I- again, and I think that's an awareness thing that like that as humans we have value, and like those companies don't run on like they need I don't know, they need like us to be able to function correctly. And so if they don't have us, then it's nothing, right? So I think there's like an understanding of that now, maybe more so than before. And not that there's like not a respect for those like companies or like higher ups or whatever, but I think it's just that like, okay, like that's cool, but there's also a value in having like me. And like sure, like you can try to like go and replace with another person, but if you make them feel the same way, then it's gonna just create a cycle of people leaving, and it's just gonna you're gonna have like a high turnover rate, and then not gonna have sustainable employees, which is not going to look good for the people who are going to join. That like, man, there's nobody that's been here over like so many years, like or things like that. So, kind of want to get your thoughts on that part.
Um, yeah, I think you bring up some uh good points there. I was literally just thinking of this TikTok that I had saw this morning, and it was this woman basically explaining like um it was touching more so on like the people who are like working
Yeah.
from home, like choosing to like quit rather than like lose their work from home privileges, like because obviously with COVID restrictions being lifted and stuff, people are having to come back into the office
Yeah.
or whatever, and so people are choosing to like people obviously are preferring to work from home, and if they can't do that, then like they're choosing to quit altogether because it's just like I don't know. I feel like, well, at least with the way that the woman explained it, she was like, well, I mean, for a whole year or what, however long you've been doing remote work, like people have been able to, number one, be in an environment where they're comfortable, like be in an environment where they're comfortable. They've been able to save money on stuff like gas and like, commuting and all that stuff. On food, like not, having to like go out, for lunch or whatever, like they can eat at home. Just like all these different benefits. And so if you're telling these people that they necessarily have to give those up and come back into the office, like obviously it's going to cause people to be
Yeah.
upset. And it made me think of like, I mean, at least if you're doing something that can be done like from home, like it would make sense why you would want to continue doing that, because it wouldn't really make a lot of sense to like go back into the office. It's just like, why would I make all that effort to go back when I can literally just do the same amount of work that I've been doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I don't know. I just in the whole like quitting your job to like pursue your passion, or not even like to pursue your passion, but like I think it's become like, again, to use this term, like normalized to stay somewhere even though it's toxic because it's safe and it's comfortable and all this stuff. And like older generations can sort of look at our generation and say that, oh well, y'all quit too easily, or y'all just can't handle it, or y'all are too soft. But it's just like, I think at least with people today, like they're starting to realize that like if something isn't serving you, or like if you are literally having to like do something at the expense of your own mental sanity, like it just doesn't really make much sense to continue doing that thing,
Yeah.
and then you're not even putting in the best amount of work that you can into what you're doing because
Right.
you're struggling mentally. So um if anything, I think it makes, well, I don't know if like to say that it makes sense like more people are quitting now than ever, because like even with like when people was getting their unemployment checks, like you would see people saying like, oh, I this check is like more than I've ever made, like from like a regular check from my job or whatever. And it's just like stuff like that, it just makes people realize that like we're getting, I guess, exploited out of doing all this labor like literally for nothing. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just, I guess it's just like people sort of understanding that, you don't necessarily have to tie your whole worth and your whole livelihood to your career or to your job, or like that doesn't have to be your whole life, in a sense. And even though it feels that way, because I mean, with the reality of how the world is, but I don't know. I just, I think it's, I'm not surprised. I mean, especially with the year that we've had, I'm not surprised that people are choosing to like stand up and be like, I don't want to do this no more. Because I mean, with COVID and all that stuff, like I don't know, it's just, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, like just alluding to the work from home element, right, and the things that happened in the last year. To be honest, like that, it's weird to like you almost created a new normal, right? Like so it kind of
Yeah,
like I don't know, like just created a whole new like world and living experience. And so to break that, I mean, we had an entire year to form a habit basically. And so it's kind of weird to kind of break that cycle and break that and there's a lack of comfort in that, right? And which would explain like why people have the reactions they do to you know, leaving that and when I say comfortability, I don't mean comfort in the sense of like you know, I'm home, so I'm chilling, like type thing. I mean, comfort in the sense of like you don't have to worry about like all the like craziness that happened in the world or that's going on because you are like in the comfort, quote unquote, of your own home. And like you said, like if it is something that is manageable from home or working where you don't have to be out and about, I think that is more preferable for people anyway, and that it's I don't know, like it. Why would like you? Why again? Like kind of like you alluded to, like why would you break that? When really there's not like a reason behind it, or really like a necessity to have to do that. Um, but yeah, I think also too that um, as far as that goes, I think that there's even like a mental health element of it in the sense of again people I guess not like if something's not making them happy and not like um mentally like satisfying for them, I think that they're just more apt to just not continue it and not um I think that there was a time period before where it's like it doesn't like that stuff didn't matter and that conversation wasn't a thing, like the mental health conversation wasn't a thing. So I think people just kind of went with the flow, like you just did whatever, like you put your head down and just kind of kept going. I think that now being that later generations are much more aware of that and how things bother them and how I don't know, just how if like you said, basically if I don't know if something doesn't feel like fulfilling to you at all, or if something's not like of interest to you, you kind of like lose the ability to work hard, to truly work hard, or really to put your best effort into something, just because of the fact that you don't feel like you're doing something that's truly like valuable or truly what you want to do or like a field that you want to work in. So I think you hit the nail on the head talking about all those things because I think that's 100% the case. I think that's 100% true. Um, I guess to kind of like switch things up, because of like how the culture is and things like that. Um, I guess how would you say that like hustle culture or capitalism has impacted like you personally?
Well, growing up, like people talk about like the gifted kid
Yeah,
syndrome or like the golden child syndrome. Like if you were considered like really smart at a young age, or say like you could read at like a very advanced level, right?
right.
People would sort of like put you kind of like on this pedestal of like, oh, she's different, she's like better than
Yeah,
the regular kids. And so I kind of had an experience like that, and I always felt like my worth as a human being was sort of tied to the achievements that I received growing up, like
mhm,
academically specifically, because like I knew that if I could do the best, that I could in school and like keep up, with my grades and like have the highest grades possible and, just perform very well academically, I would get a certain type of treatment from my parents or from like other people in a sense of like, oh, they'll see me as like the good one, like the good child, the good kid. Like, oh, we don't have to worry about her. She's perfect. She's got it. Like,
yeah,
so keeping up with that mindset, I was always scared to like fail or like was always too scared to like be bad at something
right.
because I was conditioned to believe like no, like you're supposed to be good at everything that you do or like be the best in what you do at all times. You're not allowed to have a bad day. You're not allowed to like fall off or whatever. So that mindset stuck with me. Um and it kind of got to a point where like I think it was like high school where I didn't, not that I stopped caring about like my grades, but I just thought I didn't like, I wasn't really putting in the same amount of effort that I was when I was younger because I guess just something inside me clicked. I was just like, does this even really matter like in the grand scheme of things? Like And I sort of realized that I was sort of like overachieving in a sense, like to gain that validation.
Yeah.
Like if I go overboard with what I'm doing, then obviously I'm going to gain more validation, gain more respect because I didn't know how to give that validation to myself. That
Right.
like just me doing the thing is enough by itself. But um it kind of affected me the most when I had left high school and I had started college, like feeling like that I had to be doing a million things at once. Like I need to like feeling like I remember the summer after high school graduation, like obviously I had all this free time because I wasn't working at the time and I was just chilling. And so and this was also around the time where I kind of just like last minute decided that I was going to go to a community college because I didn't really know like what I wanted to do college wise at all. So I was just kind of living, I was just kind of coasting, but I was feeling bad for myself because what could have been like a great opportunity for me to like try all these different skills and like, you know, really get to know myself and really enjoy this last summer before I have to like go back into school mode. I spent it like beating myself up every day because I was being lazy, not doing stuff, not whatever, like relax, like feeling bad for like relaxing and like taking time for myself and like just, I don't know, just enjoying my summer. Like it was such a weird thing. And then um, it just became like a vicious cycle. Like if I were to get any amount of free time, I would not like I would sort of like I guess I got so used to like always being busy or
Mhm.
like always having something to do that like whenever I would have that free time, I didn't know what to do with myself. So I would like feel guilty for having free time and like feeling like I had to be doing something even though like I could have been relaxing or like taking care of myself, whatever. And
Mhm.
so it wasn't until like last year that it got really bad because of obviously COVID. We're in the house all day. You know, I can't go anywhere. But I was still doing school. But like, even with that, I was still sort of in that mindset of like, okay, I'm not taking any tests right now. I'm not doing any assignments. I have this free time to do whatever I want. But like, and like I have a legit excuse for not doing anything because it's COVID. Like I can't go anywhere anyway. So like, you know, why not? But I was still like in that mindset of like, oh, like how can you be so lazy? Like you need to be doing something. You need to be, you know, making use of this time. Like this is the perfect time to like buckle down and like be as productive as you can. And I don't know. I was just like really hard on myself. And I think it kind of just came from like the way that sort of like my parents would talk to me and like other adults would like talk to me and all this stuff. Because I mean, you know how parents can be like, they'll be like, oh, like what are you gonna do today, or like, oh, like what did you do today, and then you'll tell them like, nothing. They're just like, oh really. You know, like they can be kind of petty in that sense, like, or like parents, you know, love to use that whole like, well, when I was your age I was doing this, this and this, and I had this by this, and you know. So it was I just struggled with a lot of that like negative mindset of like beating myself up and um yeah. And it led to me like having like really bad anxiety. Like I mentioned in a different episode that like specifically when the George Floyd stuff happened, like I started getting heart palpitations, like I couldn't sleep at night. But the whole like hustle culture mentality also played a part in that as well. And like legit, like when I tell you, like even if I tried to take a nap, like I couldn't even close my eyes because my heart would just be going crazy, like
Yeah.
because I would be like, I need to be doing something. It was bad. I was, you know, I was just in a bad place mentally. But I think I'm getting better. I just allowing myself I think I was just getting better, just allowing myself to just allow myself to rest and just allow myself to like take care of myself, and understanding that resting is just as important as working. And like
Yes.
it can't be a situation of, you know, one or the other. Like, there got to be a balance. So I'm still working on it. It's hard, but I'm still working on it. And my stubborn self is still fighting with me every day. Like, you need to relax. But you know, yeah, that's my story.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think you hit on a ton of points right there, a ton of good points. I think you were like 100% from the field as far as covering things because, um, one, I think that a lot of people can relate to that feeling of like people treating you differently, and that feeling of like people like thinking of you in a different light or associating you with like the good one or like the. I think that's a thing that a lot of people can relate to, and I think they can relate to it two different ways, right? Because in a sense, if you are that one and you are like going into those, it does make you want to like continue to do more just to continue to get validated and treated a certain way. But there's also like a flip side to that where the person who isn't like doing well or is struggling in something like but then like gets treated poorly by like people around them, then it's like, well, everybody keeps like saying these things making me feel this way, so I guess I'm just that person, and it kind of just creates like a negative like side of that as well. um but no, I think that those are all like big points because they all are very valid, especially the part about like the resting, for instance, that realizing how big of a thing that was. Because like there was a point in time where I literally used to like almost pride myself on the fact that I like required like I guess less sleep and could still
Yeah.
function, and even like struggle with that time to time now. um, but like that used to be a thing, like just staying up till like however out, like I don't know, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and then getting up for school and then being like fine or whatever. But then realizing that like that one, I would say, um, when I really like realized like the impact of sleep and how necessary it was and rest was. How necessary rest was college, and I think it's because I might have even at points got less like um, less sleep and less and then realizing God, I cannot do anything right now, like I just feel like awful. Part of it was because so I would have like we'll go like talking about my freshman year for instance, right, at Spalding. So I had classes during like the day, of course, right, and then if there was like a weekday that we had like a game, which was always of some sort, especially like in the fall. I was a sports like basically sports like commentator, and like I helped. But if you worked in that like program, you weren't just like you did like everything. So like say there was a game on Thursday, okay, so I had classes during the day, like spread out during the day. I'd have probably lunch at some point with my friends, and then my last class we'll say would be around we'll say it would end around 2:45 or 3, right. So I would go straight to the like athletic like center and be there, and we would we would like go to wherever event we were going to go to, or if we were having a home game we would have to set up everything, so that means set up like where the commentary booth is, the audio systems, all that. We would go and set up the concessions and like all the things like that. We have the game, and then after the game, we'd have to pack all that back up and either go either back to the athletic center, or if we're already home, just take stuff downstairs. Um, and then I was helping like write the stories and write the articles like for those, and then you have to go and do stats and collect those, which talk about tedious. Oh my God. Like, especially in a sport like, we'll say volleyball, for instance, where everything that happens is a statistic. I don't even know how that's possible, but literally, like, every single thing is a statistic. So you're just like watching, replaying for hours. And I would leave there at like, oh, and we'd have to photo edit. We'd have to like, like do some type of photo editing either to promote the next game or to promote like or like have like a section on like a new section on our website. And it was just like, oh my God, like I loved it, but I was getting home at like 2 or 3 o'clock, and then like, all right, let's get ready for class like bright and early at 7. And like just like feeling like just awful. And then like the days that we wouldn't have games, like there'd be like a specific time in the middle of the day where I would just like, okay, I gotta sleep. Like I'm just gonna like sleep for like a few like hours just to kind of get, I don't know, back. But I just remember drinking like coffee more than I ever did, all types of things like that, and it was just like terrible. But it was like I felt like like kind of like you alluded to, like I felt like I had to do these things because I was trying so desperately to achieve certain goals and to get certain experience, and so like you kind of just had to get this motive. Like I have to push, I have to push, I have to push. But the human body doesn't really work like that. To get the best responses from it, we have to be able to like sit down for a second, or like have to be able to like like take a break. And I'll even say for me that I think part of that too, that mentality, I think comes from like sports. Like it comes from like just like that constant like grind. And like I saw it's interesting like too, like I saw positive results from that. Like when I was in high school, the duration of being in high school, we didn't lose like our football team, for instance. Like we didn't really lose games that often, right? We would win a lot. We probably, in the 4 years I was there, we probably lost, gosh, I'm trying to think, it probably was like less than 10 games in the whole 4 years. But so like I saw the positives of that, but also I also had countless injuries from like your body just eventually saying like, okay, like we're done. Like we've been like driven into the ground at this point, and there's not, I don't know, we just need like a break. And the only time I was giving myself breaks was during like rehabs, basically, for injuries. So yeah, that's like, I guess, like the physical side of that, maybe less than the mental side of it, but still, um I don't know, I just think that that like work, like sometimes that mentality can be like dangerous. Like there has to be like a break, and there has to be um I don't know, like a moment of like just freeing your mind. And um that's why I think it's so important too to also I guess like talk about things that you like to do outside of work, like things to look forward to, whether that is some type of like gaming, or like binge watching, or like things like that. We just need like outlets and things to go to, just to kind of, when we are giving our mind like that escape, like, but like something that we really enjoy, and things to look forward to. I think we always need things to look forward to. I think that's like important. And I think that's a healthy thing to do, because resting doesn't necessarily mean just sleeping. Resting can literally just be like just doing an activity you enjoy. Like us doing this, for instance, could be like a form of that. Just like kind of, I don't know, just everybody needs like escapes from like the day to day, like a escape where they can like just free their mind. And sometimes we need those. We're human, and sometimes we need those more than like the designated times. Like sometimes like you just need to like, okay, like I gotta like, I either gotta like call out today, or like I gotta do something today, because I can't, my brain is just not in the place to you do that. But yeah, I guess with saying all that, I want to say that there are there are mental and physical like things like that. Like you were talking, for instance, about like the heart like palpitations, and like a like feeling of like wanting to rest, but then also feeling you like have to like do something or get up and do something. Like that's like part of like the physical element of it too, which is just crazy how it's crazy how in tune our like body can be, or how the human body works. For instance, like when it realizes that you're overworked, or that you're overstressed about things, you literally feel like physical like things with it. It's crazy how everything is so connected, I guess, as far as
Yeah.
that goes. Um, so yeah. um, I want to talk about, I guess, like kind of like segue into the media aspect of this discussion, right? And meaning like, what are ways that media has kind of either portrayed like the like hustle culture or capitalism, or like um, how has that like affected us? Because I can think of like several like TV shows, like even like comedies or whatever. There would be like a one character like who like say he wasn't in the mood to do something or something like that, like they made like jokes about that character being like the lazy character and stuff like that. So I think there's even like hints of that like in shows and stuff of like the past and stuff. So, but I'm just curious to see like your perspective as far as like how media discusses this topic or how media portrays this topic in your eyes.
So I think for me, like when I think of this, I think mainly on like the gaming industry and how
Mhm.
like when you think of when you think of like when a new game is coming out, like say like I don't know, we're gonna like speak on a series like uh The Last of Us, right? Say like the Last of Us franchise, they're gonna push out The Last of Us 3, I don't know, 3 years from now, whatever. Like
Yeah.
there's this thing, like at least for game developers and stuff, like crunching.
Hmm.
Basically, like it would be a period of time where developers will be in the studios day and night for working like crazy amount of hours every week just to get this one game out, and really for like no increased pay or like no extra benefits. So and like you hear stories all the time of like people feeling just like as a result they become more irritable, they become more depressed, they whatever, they get all these new like mental health issues because of it. And like you have all these people working on this one product, right? This one production or whatever. And the only like end result that comes out of it is just like, oh well, the game just has better graphics or it has
Yeah.
better game mechanics. It doesn't really affect like not necessarily focusing on like making the story better or like developing the characters in any sort of way. But like no, it looks better, so we're gonna justify it by that, you know? And it's like stuff like that. And then also even with like the way that like media companies will like push out like just crank out like TV shows and movies that are kind of mediocre, but
Right.
like gotta get that money, right? Like when you think of like all these reboots that are coming back,
Yeah.
most of them are trash or like not as great as the original, and it's just
Right.
like so stuff like that. And then I mean, I don't know, when I think of like the whole hustle culture mindset, I think of like SpongeBob in a sense, because you see how hurt he would be when like he couldn't go to work. Like he would have like full on meltdowns, like if the Krusty Krab was closed, or if, like there were episodes like he would get sick, but he would be so insistent on going to work and like flipping those Krabby Patties, even though like that one episode where he had the suds and like I don't
Yeah.
know, but it's just stuff like that. So yeah, but I was thinking more like on the gaming industry side and even like the movie and TV industry, how like it feels like in a sense like the writers room and like even like the game developer room, like these like teams are getting smaller and smaller, but yet they're expected to put out the work that would require like a team of like hundreds of people or like
Right.
whatever, you know,
Right.
however you want to measure it. But
Yeah.
I just feel like I just wish that media companies could just do better. Like with one, like not trying to rehash the same formulas in order to like continue making like the same amount of money or like more money or whatever, and just like including obviously including more people, hiring more people to your
Yes.
team so
Yes.
that you know you can get more work done and it'll be more efficient and better. And just stop being lazy with like how you are sort of allocating that work, like because it obviously not fair. Because even when I was doing my I did an internship with Bust Magazine, and like we were, you know, a small team of people trying to push out these articles every day, and it's like, you know, the main editor, she would be the only person editing all of the articles. You can
Right.
imagine having to be in charge of like 20 plus articles every week, making sure that they're all fact checked, proofread, ready to go for the website, like just stuff like that. So, yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's huge, and I she said something actually that was very like kind of like comical in the sense of thinking about like the fact that the higher ups or like the heads of certain things are kind of lazy in how they allocate like the
Yeah.
work, which is there's a element of that that's funny like thinking about the conversation as a whole, but um, yeah, no, I 100% get that, and I definitely get. Um, where you're coming from with that, and I completely agree. And like you use gaming as an example, I can relate to that as someone who plays games. Like that is 100% the case. There are so many times where it feels like the like I don't know, like you want like fun and entertainment out of a game, and you what you don't want is like for it to feel monotonous. Like feel like you're just
Yeah.
doing the same thing over and over again. It just like gets boring. And there's been several times like I'm trying to think of a game right now, but like if I think back to like the Cortland episode, me and him talked about like we both play 2K, for instance. There's sometimes that like that game, like where the literally the community, I will give the benefit of the doubt and say that the community complains more than any other community that I've ever like given community that I've ever been a part of. But at the same time, it's all necessary. And one of the main things that people complain about, ironically, is like they need to hire more people. They're like this huge industry because like the thing that owns them owns um or it's Take Two Interactive, which owns like Rockstar Gaming. So like
Yeah.
obviously Grand Theft Auto and like Red Dead Redemption. They have all these like crazy big games, and like how do you not have more people to like do more
Right.
things and to like add more things to the game? Like how is that possible? Like you're like a multi-billion-dollar like, like company.
Right.
That was just a thing, but yeah, no, that's a really I don't know. I think you kind of like killed that as far as like yeah representing a like the how I don't know, like just how like I don't know, they just there's sometimes like they just there has to be a way to I think part of the balance for people could be if you're like balancing out the work and balancing out um like I don't know like you were alluding to just like allocating the work like and making hiring more people and things like that like there I don't know. I think it's difficult too when someone has a job title or not has it maybe has a job title, but then their job requirements are like 100 different things. Like they could be doing all these types of things. I don't think that's good either. Um, so yeah, I'm with you. I think that was kind of like perfect in that sense, and I think um, that was a perfect like example to kind of bring in like the gaming element and the and also the magazine and talking about those things because um, that is like rather than like saying talking about like maybe how media portrays certain things it's more so like how like in media could be better at that and kind of like talking about the inside of the insides of things which is perfect um so I guess to go from there, I think one of the things that we wanted to do was to make sure that we did talk about like the positives of hustle because we didn't want it to I think it's important to note that the things that we're saying like they're not like it's not that we're like condemning like hard work and we're not condemning like going like it's like striving to be something in like school or like striving to go I think it's just all about like us like saying the balance part of things right and talking about how we have to give ourselves like a rest and we have to give ourselves like just true like I don't know, like balance and like kind of something you a major point that you alluded to is like validating yourself, like not feeling like you have to do certain things to validate yourself that you can kind of find that like elsewhere. I think all those things are important. That's what we're really trying to show, and not we're not. We don't want it to sound like it's like anti like working hard or anti like anything like that, but what are some of but we do want to hit on like the positives and the negatives of it so what would you say are some of the positives that you can kind of draw from like that from like hustle culture capitalism like what are some of the things that you can think of that are like that are positive and that are good for society.
Well, I mean, people always talk about how, they want to stay booked and
Yeah.
busy, right? And that is a good thing in a sense because, like, having something like determination and work ethic and drive and all that stuff, it's beneficial because, like, once you sort of like get to a certain age where you realize that like you are literally the the master of your own story, like the master of your own life in a sense. Like you essentially will gain this sort of insight or perspective, confidence that like, okay, if I know that I'm only in charge of the things that I can do, like why, let me use that to put it towards something that I care about. And let me just like hustle in a sense of like, okay, I'm a really like take this thing and try to make something out of it and then, expand on it. And I might try to go into different directions, but I never stay stuck and I never stay comfortable. I think that is one of the things that I do like about the hustle culture mindset of like not wanting to stay comfortable and not
Right.
wanting to stay safe and not wanting to stay compliant or complacent, whatever. So there's that aspect. And like, um, obviously, as a result of capitalism, we have things like uh, consumer choice and like consumer freedom. Like, we have a wide variety of things to choose from as far as like businesses and brands and products and all this stuff. So it does sort of give us more of an opportunity to try new things and like, especially like now, like there were jobs for all sorts of things and like markets for all sorts of things. So it's not
Yeah.
like you have to feel limited into what you can do with your life. Um, However you want to look at it, that can be exciting or it can be overwhelming. But
Mm.
I'm gonna send the positive. We're gonna say it is exciting. And I mean, I feel like if done in the right way, like you know, capitalism, like it can promote like efficiency. Being efficient with your work, like being consistent with the
Right.
results that you're putting out, with whatever product you're trying to sell or whatever. And like, this world revolves around money. So like obviously the more stuff that you sell, the more money that's coming in, and then you can use that money to buy more supply. So it becomes like
Yeah.
a cycle and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that stuff is like, okay, like I would consider those like positives
Yeah.
of capitalism. So
Yeah.
that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I think there is something to also like the goal elements of it, right? Like it does make things like you're kind of like striving for. Like for instance, like it for we'll go as far as finances go, right? There's a part of it that like I don't know, you kind of think in this sense of like being able to like achieve a lot and to achieve a lot financially and to it makes you kind of that motivates you and kind of gives you like an element of like that's the reason you're pushing is to get to that level of thing. So I think there's definitely a positive in that sense as well. Um, and with I don't know, like I think you Ian kind of like hit everything um, as far as that goes, as far as like the different positives of it, because in a sense, like sometimes, like I guess to give a counter to one of the things we talked about earlier, which was like the validation part of things, that the even though yes, you want to be able to validate yourself as a human without work or things like that, or like being like this extraordinary like student and things like that. Um, there is an element of that that is nice. Like there is an element that is nice to be recognized for that hard work or recognized for those things. Um, that is good for us to have like that, right? It's good to like hear that you did a good job on something, or that you like did whatever. Like it was like, oh, this was really good, or this is really nice, or whatever. That part is a good feeling to have. So I guess that's something to look at if you're looking at the converse, like what we were talking about earlier. Um, but yeah, that's I think that's really good. I think it's important to like hit on that too because again, we I guess one of the things is with this podcast we wanted to be able to one represent like all sides of things, right? And that that it's not just like simply like one thing is the truth and that's it. Like I think the two truths can exist at one time. I think it can be there can be positives and there can be negatives of things, and I think it's important that we do take the time to highlight those because I think sometimes that in like a podcast format, really of any discussion, that I think that um, a say that the host or the co-host or however the setup is, they can talk about something and it almost seeming like they only have one viewpoint on things, or that they're kind of unaware to like the other side of things. And so I think it's important that we took the time or take the time to talk about the other point of that, even though maybe we don't necessarily like fall in line with like a certain idea or a certain way of thinking, that we can at least see and are aware to the other side. And that kind of is to go along with the fact of we want people to feel comfortable with our pod. We want people to know that everyone has like a place here, and that again, that this is a discussion based podcast, meaning like that we want everyone to feel like they're included in the conversation. It's not just me and you talking about things. It's that we want people to feel like they can comment and say, hey, can we come on and talk about like whatever. Like we want it to be like an open source like that. And so just to know that like all opinions are heard here, and all like viewpoints are heard here and appreciated here, and that we plan on discussing like all sides of everything that we talk about. We don't ever want it to feel like it's one sided, unless it's things like equality, like really not another side of that, like we're that we represented on this show. But still, when it's like an open topic of like truly something that can really go either way, I think that's something that we definitely want to do, is just kind of, I don't know, that was something that we talked about before we started this podcast, is just like being representative of all different things, and all different sides of and viewpoints of things, and how things could be positive or how things could be like negative. I think we've tried to do that on every podcast, right? I think like for instance, we go back to like the school podcast that we did, talking about like the negative as far as like, gosh, it'd be really nice if the funds were more balanced and more like equaled out, as far as like the art programs and things like that being financially supported as much as like a sports team. But then you brought up the point during that podcast of also like, we understand too that like the money making element of that, right? The fact that like the games and stuff generate a good amount of money and excitement, and people are really eager to go to those, and that is, there's like a reason almost for that kind of difference, I guess. Um, so yeah, just kind of like I don't know. I think it's good that we just take the time to represent all aspects of the conversation. But I really enjoyed this one only because like it's, I don't know. I think that's a really interesting topic, and it's a really I don't know. I think that um, sometimes I think that again, I kind of like just to like go back to something I said earlier on in the podcast, is that I think that there's an eye opening in the sense of like kind of our own personal value, right? And that we don't have to like kill ourselves for something that's not, you know, fulfilling to us, or that's not, or we don't feel valued, or we don't feel like, you know, our work is appreciated and things like that. However, also like, just it's important to talk about how that shaped the culture that we've grown up in, and the society that we've grown up in. It's like work, 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 or like what the previous generations have tried to instill in us as well. I just think it was a really interesting topic, because I think that that is something that has really changed a lot in the last, we will say, I guess like to say like the last 20 years, right? That's really been something that you've seen like a cultural shift, I guess. And so I really like this topic. I thought it was like a very interesting topic for us to touch on. So I liked it. I like this discussion very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I think that will, I guess, wrap us up for episode 5. Um, Hustle culture and capitalism. I liked it.
Yep. And yeah, I think it was a very productive conversation, ironic enough. But yeah, I I enjoyed it, and I think also I think it's good whenever we share like our own personal
Yes.
experiences with the topic as well, so it doesn't feel like too, I don't know, formal or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, definitely one for the books. And yeah, if any of you resonated with anything that we said today, let us know in the comments. Um, Tell us what you think. Like, do you agree with this? Do you not? Like, what are your thoughts on capitalism, hustle culture? the whole 9 yards. Like, it'll be interesting to see your ideas. And yeah, thank y'all for watching. And we will see y'all in the next one. Bye.